Hello and welcome to Rural Community Assistance Corporation's virtual Recharge Our Community's Economy workshop series, module number 2. My name is Noah Kornblue and I'm one of your facilitators today. I'm a Rural Development Specialist with Rural Community Assistance Corporation.
And I'm Nick Dorr. I'm a community coordinator with Opportunity Link Incorporated of Havre, Montana.
I'm Madison Wilhite. I'm also a community coordinator at the Native American Development Corporation in Billings, Montana.
This virtual ROC workshop series was developed and is being facilitated by RCAC and its local partners thanks to generous funding from the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency. You have already completed the tools in Module 1 to assess your community's assets. Now we will move on to building value chains. Module 2 will cover value chain mapping, understanding value chain partners, and the 3 types of interest. Our goal for today is to understand how to map the partner and resources in our communities, which are key to turning our economic opportunity into a reality. The handouts for this module are available in your workbook so you can follow along. They are the Module 2 PowerPoint slides with space next to each slide for notes, a sheet with the value chain definitions and partners, a copy of the tomato soup value chain diagram, the community scenario introduced in Module 1 that will be used throughout the workshops, and the identifying your value chain activity and the mapping your value chain activity.
So how are we going to map these partners and resources? Many of you are familiar with the traditional supply chain used to produce and distribute a good or service. For example, a potato, which the farmer sells to a factory, which then turns them into potato chips and sells them to a grocery store that then sells them to you. We're going to use a similar concept of a value chain to map our economic opportunities by understanding the market forces and ensuring value is added and assets are increased at each step of the value chain. By the end of this module, you will know how to begin mapping your own value chains for economic opportunities in your communities. So what are the key differences between a traditional supply chain and a value chain? In a value chain, the process starts with demand. The needs or demands of people in your community, your potential users or customers and consumers. Everything starts with them and then filters back through the value chain. In a supply chain, it typically starts with the producer who's trying to find a way to sell their product or service on the market and is less concerned about the needs of their potential customers. In a value chain, we measure success in the number of assets created, strengthened, and improved. Remember those 8 forms of assets from Module 1? We need to ensure that our value chains are adding to our assets and not harming them. In a supply chain, success is usually measured simply by financial assets in the form of net income or money accumulated by the producer. In a value chain, trust and communication are key in collaborating and working together to be responsive to market demand. In a traditional supply chain, trust and communication do not have to be high, as transactions between partners are mostly financial. In a value chain, we look at ensuring benefit to everyone involved through self-interest, shared interest, and common interest. In a traditional supply chain, the producers are often only concerned with their self-interest. Those different types of interest are important to understand when building your own value chains.
As Noah mentioned, there are 3 types of interest in the value chain model. First, there's self-interest. This is where we ask, what's in it for me? Self-interest isn't a bad thing. It actually can be one of the strongest motivators. If there was no self-interest, would anyone participate? Self-interest is a necessary component for all types of economic development. Next, we look at shared interest. This is where we ask, what's in it for us? This is a situation where all parties involved gain some type of advantage or mutual benefit. It's a win-win situation for everyone. The third type of interest is common interest. This is where we ask, what's in it for everyone? Here, we look at the benefits outside of the value chain to see how the community as a whole might benefit. Value chains are a tool to express economic development opportunities, representing a network that links assets and economic opportunities to market demand. Now we'll talk about how you build one of these value chains and the partners and stakeholders it takes to make it happen. The three partners and stakeholders in a value chain include demand, transactional, and support partners. The WealthWorks approach is an interrelated and interdependent approach. You might think of these three types of partnerships as gears that work together and are less effective working independently. Make sure you take a look at the handout on value chain definitions and partners. The demand partners are the people, organizations, and businesses who are buying or using your products or services. Demand partners are an important part of the value chain because without them, you're producing on a blind faith that someone will buy whatever it is you're offering. For example, if you were a potato farmer, who would you sell your produce to? A factory, the grocery store, an individual? Again, demand partners are the people or organizations purchasing the product you're offering. Transactional partners are the businesses, organizations, and people that play a direct role in sourcing, producing, and distributing the actual product or service that you are delivering to your demand partners. Transactional partners typically include businesses or others that supply materials. So for example, if we're sticking with our potato farmer, this would be the seed supplier. These partners might also be those who produce basic goods or services from the materials. So this would be the potato farmer themselves. These type of partners might also aggregate or bundle products or services. An example of this would be purchasing the potatoes from multiple farmers, bundling the potatoes together and selling them to a factory. These partners might also process the goods or services into different products or package them. So for example, this might be the factory who turns the potatoes into potato chips and packages them. These partners also could be the distributors. So this might look like transportation of goods to retailers and consumers. In our potato chip example, this would be the trucking company that picks up the packed potato chips and delivers them to grocery stores. And finally, support partners. Support partners are the people, businesses, and organizations that help the transactional partners by providing knowledge, resources, financing, and technical assistance. An example of this would be, I work at the Native American Development Corporation. We provide technical assistance, we offer various trainings, we have a revolving CDFI loan fund, and we can connect our clients with other helpful resources. This would make us a support partner.
So now we're going to look at a sample value chain. You should have a picture of this value chain in your workbook called the tomato soup value chain diagram. The product or service in this value chain is vegetable soup. The green squares are the names of the transactional partners. The farmer who grows the vegetables, the aggregator that goes to all the different farms to collect the vegetables and then sells them to a processor who turns them into soup, then to a distributor who finds the customers, and eventually they get to the consumer. The demand partners in blue are the customers, those buying the soup. As you can see, they are individuals, but also organizations such as the hospital to feed their patients and the school district to feed their students. The support partners are in yellow and include the Farmers Alliance, a network for growers, local food certifier who works to inspect and certify if the produce is organic. The food safety trainer is training the soup processor on safe practices. The Healthy Kid organization who wants to make sure the produce is organic and of high quality. Support partners can support multiple partners throughout the process. For example, the local food certifier works with the vegetable grower and the aggregator and the Farmers Alliance. As you can see, although the green arrows all move towards the demand partners as the vegetables become soup and eventually reach the consumer, the red arrows go in all different directions, indicating that communication flows back and forth through the partners. This communication is key in successful value chains. There's also a coordinator role in red. The coordinator facilitates communication between the value chain partners, making connections between different stakeholders and resource providers. Many communities we work with have a community coordinator. They often work for a local community development organization or agency. Both Nick and Madison are community coordinators, working with 3 different communities in Montana. Nick, would you mind explaining your role as a community coordinator for Opportunity Link?
Sure. As a community coordinator with Opportunity Link, I'm not only responsible for facilitation of our ROC workshops into communities, but also for program development, seeking grants and proposals, and project management of other existing projects at Opportunity Link.
Great, thank you so much for being here with us today. This is a simple example of a value chain. They are often not linear and they can be all different shapes and sizes. We're now going to demo building a value chain using our community scenario we introduced in Module 1. As we mentioned at the beginning of this module, one of the handouts in your workbook is a community scenario that will be used throughout the workshops to practice concepts and tools. Please find the handout in your workbook and follow along as we review the second part of the scenario. The reservation is considered a food desert due to lack of affordable, high-quality fruits and vegetables. The tribal convenience store only carries chips, candy, and soda. In addition, while the local grocery store offers fruits and vegetables, the selection is limited and the prices are often more than twice those of off-reservation communities. Because of this, many individuals on the reservation do the bulk of their weekly shopping in the nearby border town. However, the border town can be an unfriendly environment for tribal members. A nonprofit group is working on the reservation on a buy local campaign that is growing. A recent flood destroyed the bridge over the river between the reservation and the highway that leads to the border town. For more than 2 weeks, while the bridge was being repaired, community members had to drive almost 3 hours out of their way to take an alternative route to the nearby town, highlighting food sovereignty issues in the community. As a result, a group of community members has decided to start a workers' cooperative farm to increase affordable access to fruits and vegetables on reservation. The produce grown on the farm would be sold directly to community members, as well as to businesses and tribal programs in the community. While the main goal is to ensure community members have access to locally grown, affordable, fresh fruits and vegetables, any excess produce would be sold to other individuals and businesses in the region. So based on the information in the scenario and the 8 forms of assets or wealth covered in Module 1, we're going to demonstrate mapping this value chain. Okay, so now we're going to build a value chain for the farmer cooperative. The product in the value chain is fruits and vegetables. You can do this on a wall or a window, whatever space you have available to build your value chain as you go through this process. One tip for your value chain is to put each partner on a separate sticky note or index card so you can move them around as you go and adjust your value chain. Be sure you can distinguish between the different types of partners. One way to do this is to use a different colored index card, sticky note, or color marker for each type of partner. Based on the community scenario, let's start with our demand partners. We know that demand partners can be people or organizations. I'm going to write my demand partners on a blue Post-it note. So to start, we have 3,500 people living on reservation who are potential customers. So we're going to write a sticky note that says 3,500 people. We might be able to sell fresh fruits and vegetables to the local restaurant. So you want to be as specific as possible when listing your partners. So we're going to say the local restaurant's name is Rosie's. So we're going to write Rosie's Restaurant on a sticky note. And then we also know from the scenario there's a local school district. So the farmers co-op might be able to sell their produce to the local school district for lunches for their students. So we're going to put K through 12 school district on one of our sticky notes. So, and now, can you think of anyone else? We know that there's a grocery store on reservation that the co-op might also be able to sell to. Is a grocery store a demand partner or a transactional partner? I'm going to put it as a transactional partner because the final customer is actually the shopper at the grocery store. But don't worry too much about putting your partners in exactly the right place. What's important is that you include as many as possible in your value chain. So let's move on to transactional partners. I'm going to write the transactional partners on green Post-it notes. So let's start with the grocery store. So we also know that the farmers are going to need to buy equipment. A local hardware store or equipment provider isn't listed in our scenario, but we know that we're going to need one. So I'm going to write hardware store on a green sticky note, and we'll go back and look at that later on in the process. So we also know that the farmers co-op will have to find land to lease, and this will likely be tribal trust land. So they'll have to work with the tribal land department to secure a lease. So we're going to put tribal land department as one of our transactional partners on a green Post-it note. I also forgot the most important partner. We have to include our farmers cooperative as a transactional partner because they also belong in our value chain. So let's move on to support partners. The community scenario mentions a nonprofit by a local group that could help promote fresh fruits and vegetables. So they could be a valuable support partner for the farmers co-op as they market their products. I'm going to put the support partners on orange-yellow sticky notes. The community scenario also mentioned that there were no banks or credit unions in the region. So we're going to have to identify a financial institution that can be a support partner. As a placeholder right now, I'm just going to write bank with a question mark as a placeholder. There is also regional, national organizations that you may know of that the co-op could reach out to for financial resources, or technical assistance, go ahead and add those to your value chain. And because our scenario takes place in Montana, I know that there's a Montana Cooperative Development Center that could be a potential partner, and also an Intertribal Agricultural Council that's a national organization that could be a partner. But if you can think of any others, add them to your value chain. Okay, so another aspect you should consider when building your value chain is how your value chain impacts your community's assets. Using those 8 forms of wealth or assets we covered in Module 1, how would your value chain improve, sustain, or even possibly harm the community's assets? So in looking at our value chain, how would our value chain impact individual assets? Well, it has the potential to improve our community's health through healthier diets. Financial assets, it could save people both time and money by not having to drive and spend money on gas going to the border town to go grocery shopping. Intellectual, the co-op could educate the community about agricultural practices and healthy eating. Cultural, the farmers might be able to promote traditional foods and agricultural practices that some of the community members may not know about. And natural, they might be able to improve the land by practicing sustainable agriculture. There's also political, social, and built. And when you're building your own value chains for your economic opportunities, you want to make sure that you look at all 8 forms of assets and how your value chain impacts them to make sure that you're bringing benefit. So now that we're done, we're going to take a step back and take a look at our value chain map and ask ourselves again, who's missing? Is there a partner I could reach out to that would benefit my value chain? And this is something you should do throughout this process. And it helps you create a stronger, more robust value chain going forward.
Now you're going to map your own value chains using an economic opportunity in your community. The instructions are located in your workbook handouts titled Identifying Your Value Chain and Mapping Your Value Chain. Don't worry about getting every value chain partner in the right spot. Value chains should change and adapt as you go through this process, building on your knowledge and tools. If you have not yet decided on an economic opportunity, use the case study provided to fill out the handouts and practice mapping a value chain. Once you complete the activity, take a picture of your value chain and post it in the Facebook group for your community. You have completed Module 2 of the virtual ROCE workshop series. Check the date and times for your community's online interactive session where you will be discussing your economic opportunity as a value chain. In the meantime, please feel free to post your thoughts and questions about Module 2 in your community's Facebook group. You can contact me, Nick Dorr with Opportunity Link Incorporated, or Madison Wilhite with Native American Development Corporation if you have any questions. Our contact information is included in the front of your workbook.